Hi, everybody. This second video is around the survival bit, and I'm going to take you deeper into the survival, and we just touched it in the first video. So what is different between individual survival and species need to survive? Now let's look at individual survival would be that my child who is there, or I want to survive, or my child died and he couldn't survive. That's like individually somebody cannot survive. Somebody cannot survive because of number of reasons. Ill health, they couldn't belong to the family, they couldn't feel that they belong to their work structure. Something is happening in their life where they are not feeling content, fulfilled, and they are not feeling that they need to continue their life. A lot of children today are giving up their lives, committing suicides because they don't see any reason to continue living. So our survival is hit on when our relationships with people who we love a lot do not turn out the way we want them to turn out. So our relationships become extremely important uh, in our health issues. If our relationships are warped up, if our relationships are not okay, there is every chance that you may be having illnesses which are related to these people, because you are just, how do you say, compromising. You are compromising. You are not. You're not. Your heart is not there. You're continuing to be not at ease about something, but you're continuing that marriage. You're continuing that job. You're continuing to take care of your mother-in-law who's not well, take care of something or doing something. Yes, of course, these are duties, as we call it. But it's also duty because if we don't do it, someone is not going to accept us. Maybe the society is not going to accept us. The next is species need to survive. And if we look at dinosaurs at one time was there and big and mighty, and they just disappeared. We look at the banking industry went through change. So something happened. India doesn't exist the way it did before. And it has got Pakistan and India is it's separated the people, and the way there was a whole bunch of people who were eradicated or removed from the planet Earth practically. Then we don't have, how do you say, in the World War II, so many people died. And these are the species need to survive and continue, which means we need to be able to reproduce so that we can have children and the species can continue. Yet many cultures today are not able to create as many children because of their strong beliefs around that they first need to have an individual survival. They need to survive, and they can't think of the kids might feel like, oh, it's an additional job that they have to do, and that's not how they want to live their life. Now, there was an experiment done, and beautiful experiment done by this lady. Her name is Isabel Mensoy. She is a neurologist, and she conducted experiments with her team. She brought about how epigenealogy is carried by the trauma. And she also said trauma is hereditary. So this changes exactly the way we are looking at disease today. Because if I know that there is something that I'm carrying, or I'm reacting to something that's not even my stuff, I'm carrying maybe an illness that's not even my stuff. ऐसे जैसे कि somebody's left their stuff in your house and you walked into that house, maybe you took it on rent, but they gave you the old furniture. Now you're carrying their old furniture and started using and making it your own. Similarly, maybe someone gave you their old clothes and you started and you made your own. I'm not saying, hey, you shouldn't be taking clothes uh, or furniture or stuff. I'm just giving you an example that it's almost like we inherit, we take things from other people and we make it our own. In the similar way, we take lives of other people and make it our own. I'm going to take you through the experiment that was done by this amazing lady, Isabel Minsoy. And you can actually Google her name and search and look at the various photographs and what she has done. This just changes how people can look at the disease today. Let's look further what she has done before I explain further to you. So what she did was very interesting. Um, She said what she did was she repeatedly separated the baby mice from their mothers and locked them up in small tubes like these. You can see this red tube. She locked them up in small tubes like this. So she actually separated the baby mice which were born, and male baby mice, not the female baby mice, and she put them up in the tight tubes. These mice that were put in the tight tubes were separated from their moms at a random, like, randomly. It wasn't like, it will be after a certain period. She randomly did it. And uh, what was very interesting, these mice behaved traumatized, and they became risk averse. They did not want to take any risk. They became apathic. They lacked in curiosity. And later, when in their genes, when they did, researchers found that there were traces of epigenetic trauma in the genes. Now, what does this mean? This means that when I am, or my father is traumatized, and when he is traumatized, or my grandfather who was traumatized, they become risk averse. So anybody who's traumatized, they will become risk averse, which means I don't want to take risk anymore. I want to do things in a particular manner only. Somebody who does it in a very peculiar way. And OCD would also mean I am to the other level of how I don't want to be risk averse. I want to do it in my way, just in this way and no other way. And you don't have curiosity, because curiosity could mean that you're going to search, and searching could mean that you are not going to find what you really want. So they are lacking in curiosity, and they found that there were traces. This then further gets carried on, and this was her first step. In the second step, what she did was she removed the egg of a normal adult mouse mother. So basically, a normal egg was removed, and this was artificially inseminated with the sperm from the traumatized mouse fathers. So uh, the first one was they traumatized, and then these rats became risk averse. Curiosity wasn't there. Then the egg was removed, and the sperm from this traumatized mouse who was behaving traumatized, who was behaving risk averse, was taken, and artificially the baby was created. Insemination was done. And uh, what did they find? They found that the baby mice, which was born out of this combination, or this conception, which was artificial insemination of the male mice, which is carrying traumatized sperm, and female mice, which is carrying a normal egg, when they are put together, the mice, baby mice, were actually carrying the trauma that their ancestors were carrying. They had never come in contact with that their father. They had never learned anything from the father. And yet, just because the trauma had happened, this uh, trauma was remembered by the sperms, and then trauma was further remembered by the baby mice. And the baby mice further became exactly like their traumatized father. That means they became risk averse, apathic, and they lacked curiosity. In contrast, if we take the normal group was where mother's egg was taken, and a normal a, ma- a mouse was taken who was not subjected to any trauma. Now, this is called the control group, and when they did not have their babies were absolutely normal. So Mansue was able to prove with this prove with this that the trauma actually moves hereditarily from one generation to another. She also found that there is a way out, and the way out was to give these rats lots of love, to give them a comfortable environment, to wherein they can heal. And if the more comfortable we made the environment, the more comfortable they got, and they could heal their symptoms over a course of their later lives. So this was a this research that has been done by her is amazing, and it makes us realize that when, like I told you further, if my grandfather, or let's take a proper example here. Um, so I know of a family which moved from Rangoon to India. When they were moving, they lost everything. Like the house and the riches, they were merchants in Rangoon, and when they came to India, they kind of didn't have as much. And they when they came, especially they moved to Ahmedabad, and then they settled down in Mumbai later. Now, interestingly, the same incident gets repeated in the son's life. Let's say the father is moved from Rangoon to India, and then they've settled down. Now, at a certain age, we found that this son who was born out, who's taken his father's trauma, also loses his livelihood at the similar ages as their father did. Maybe, and as he loses his livelihood, he also goes through a migration movement of a place, and he has to then move from one house to another, so that it's like just like his father had moved. And then further, his grandchildren do not like any kind of changes, and they are reacting to change in the school. The mother has just put the children into another school, and they cannot take it. So they don't even understand why the children are born with so much of, how do you say, trauma, and why the kids are behaving. So there are these kids that I'm talking about. There are two of them, they're twins, and one of them was is been carrying, they're just 10 years of age now, but one of them carried kidney stones right at the age of 6 or 7. Now you only carry kidney stones if you want to build a house. It's almost like, a loss of a house, a loss of a job, a loss of something is going to make you want to build that house somewhere, and the grandchild is carrying it already in his kidney, wanting to kind of build the house. Yes, it's about my territory being taken away from me. So let's think how our, and I would really like you to do this. I would really like you to get into your family tree and look at it as to what is it that your father did, your grandfather did. Let's explore our histories, and let's explore how our life could be different. And let's also learn from what lessons our grandparents are teaching us, and their parents are teaching us. I had also spoken about how 3 generations probably carry the similar stuff, is because mother is carrying a baby, but if it's a baby girl, she already has the ovaries and the ova. So you're already present inside your grandmother when she's pregnant with your mother. And this is just way about very fascinating stuff. So I would tell all of you to do this activity. Write down where and conflicts that you're facing. Write down the health issues that you're facing. Go back in the track and do what conventional doctors do. They ask you, is there in the family line, lineage, anybody with, your kind of a disease? Then mark the people who've got the same disease. Okay, once you've done that, get into their lives. Look, what were the circumstances that they were facing? Check out further before this. Was it existing in a lineage before this? And then check out what were the circumstances even before this, and how many generations has this gone on. It'll be a fun activity, and you will get to know more about your own history and from where you come, and it'll give you an insight into your diseases. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed um, hearing this as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Anu Mehta, and today I'm speaking about conditioning and disease. I'm sure आपने सुना है कि disease इसलिए हो रहा है because सर्दी लग गई and you've eaten something that is like कुल्फी खा ली, या फिर आपने ठंडे पानी से नहा लिया. You've taken bath with cold water, or you've eaten something that didn't suit you. And I've heard that so often and so many times. Yet, according to Meta Health, we believe that disease is caused because of a certain event that happens or certain conflict in your life. And today we're going to discuss about कि क्या conditioning है which can cause our disease. And what do you mean by conditioning? Conditioning means something that we do again and again. And it's like that song that you hear, Tu meri chamak chalo, tu meri chamak chalo, tu meri chamak chalo. We're repeating the same thing again and again. And maybe, I often give this example to people. हो सकता है कि आपकी मम्मी ने आलू की सब्जी बिल्कुल वैसे बनाई है जैसे आप बनाते हो, या उल्टा कह दिया जाए कि आप बिल्कुल अपनी मम्मी की रेसिपी को कॉपी करके बना रहे हो. What I'm saying, and I'm going to translate that into English. Most of the times we realize that we copy our parents without even realizing. We just do the same thing again and again, including cooking the vegetables in the same way, taking care of the house in the same way. I realized for the longest that I would serve people if they came to my house and take stress exactly like my mother did. And this is nothing but conditioning. And when we do the same thing again and again, like our parents did, like someone else did, that could then cause a disease. Why? Because maybe generations have not been at ease with something that's been happening in the genealogy. So today we're going to discuss and we're going to understand कि क्या हो सकता है? Is it possible that our disease is caused due to our conditioning because we are repeating the same stuff again and again, exactly the way our parents did? Let's look at this short movie. I love his expression. Have a look at it once again. Right. It feels as if something has happened that's left this expression on the person's face. And in Meta Health, we believe that there is something called a Yudin. Yudin is another word that we use for the shock that has happened in your life. Something wherein you couldn't deal with the stuff just by itself. So shock that has happened is also called Yudin. The UDIN is actually an acronym which we are using for unexpected, dramatic, isolating, and where we have no plan how to do what we plan to do. So let's understand this a little bit better. And let me take you through this video once again. This is a man, and then he sees something right in front. Let's assume what he's seeing in front of him is his wife kissing a stranger. And he doesn't know what to do about it. And he's like, this is a shock. And he can't think that his wife is cheating on him. and he can't understand why his wife is cheating on him. And this could be one of the reasons that he is feeling that, that his wife has crossed a boundary, crossed a territory, crossed a space and rejected him, and she's with someone else. And his perceptions will walk in, of course. And then from there, he will decide, oh, so my wife is probably kissed this guy, and I'm not feeling good about it. And I'm not at ease now. Can he go around telling his friends about this? Let's look at it once again. So he's standing and he watches his wife kissing a stranger. And he doesn't know what to do. He can't believe his eyes. He can't believe what she's telling him. I love you. He can't believe his ears. He's feeling probably rejected, upset, and absolutely like, oh my God, how can that happen? These kind of unexpected shocks can cause disease in our body. And research has found that also conditioning can cause, along with these shocks, conditioning that happens. Something that happens where, like I said, one person is doing it, then the other. Let me give you an example here, where I know of families who've migrated maybe from Pakistan to India, or maybe during the World War time from Rangoon to India. And stories were similar. People had to leave something behind. And this creates a shock in the generation. So let's read further. However, we also need to understand that the person's health cannot be solely dependent on individual conflicts only. So, yes, conflicts can cause, but there is something also happening where we don't even realize that it is a shock. We don't even realize that the new path that has got created or a new pattern that has got created is because of a shock. And what do I mean by that? So let's look at this video once more. The man, he looks at his wife kissing. He just cannot believe it. And next he hears her say, I love you. He can't take it. And now he's suddenly feeling rejected. But not only is he feeling rejected, but he's also made a decision here. And the decision that he's made here is all women are like that. And this has probably changed the course of how he's going to live his life. And from here on, his life is going to be different. What happens to his kids and his grandchildren? Because he made this decision. Let's understand this little further. What are internal and psychological conditions? What will happen now to him? What will be his internal condition? What will be his psychological condition that will give rise to, that exists to give rise to this or other conflict? Maybe if he had a different kind of internal and psychological condition going on, he would have said, so what? I'm a free man. I'm not feeling rejected. I can always, maybe there's something happening. He could always find out from his wife, his partner, is she still interested? Maybe we don't know what was happening there. But maybe if his internal and psychological condition was different, he might not feel rejected, but may be able to sit down, have a conversation with her, communicate with her, and then his conflict would be different. Maybe he would say, oh, you know what? Maybe I didn't give time to her. And maybe I need to work less. Maybe I need to give her more time. And if I give her more time, maybe then she will be able to, she may have stayed with me a little more, or she wouldn't have been tempted to go elsewhere. The understanding that the person gets of a shock comes from his internal and psychological conditions. Why is it that we react so sensitively to one issue and it doesn't seem to matter to others much at all? I'll give you a simple example of this. I've always seen my mom react in a very tragic way when she thinks of someone not having money, or loss of money, or loss of status, or loss of identity, or a loss of job. Now she may react to it so sensitively that it's a learned reaction that I have learned from her, and she's probably learned this reaction from her mother. And when I am now looking at, maybe I'm extremely sensitive to how much money I will have, because that may mean I am probably getting accepted or I'm not getting accepted. So we don't know what are the internal and psychological conditions that exist that will give rise to something. We do not know why we are so sensitive to one issue when the other person may not seem to, for him, it may not matter. uh, Maybe this man, if he looked at her, and maybe if he was having a girlfriend somewhere, he won't even have, he might be relieved that she's kissing someone else. So how we are going to react to a situation and will depend on our internal psychological condition, and will also depend on what is it, our past experiences, basically our past experiences or past experiences of someone else in the family that we have looked at. Let's say, in in a certain community, girls are not supposed to get married. Uh, I mean, love marriage is considered a taboo. So if her parents are told that, our daughter has fallen in love, and she comes home and says, Papa, I think I'm going to marry Tom Dickens because he's from another culture, but I really love him and I'm going to get married to him. Now, maybe her father and her mother might react to it very sensitively, because, for them, the idea of love marriage is a taboo. And here, their dear daughter is not just wanting to get married, but to get married to someone who is from another culture altogether. So let's go further and understand what is it that makes us into who we are and how we behave. What is it that makes us, this internal and psychological conditions, different? What is it that makes us so sensitive? What people have realized is that sensitivity comes from the need to survive. And our biggest need to survive is belonging. We need to belong. We always need to belong to a small community, to a culture, to a country. So let's begin. We need to belong to our parents first. Then we need to belong to the families that their parents come from. Then we need to belong to, uh, our city from where we came, or school where we are studying, or the friends that we have created over there. We feel that they belong to us and we belong to them. This is what gives us our identity. Then it is the country that you belong. So if I was there, I would say I belong to my mother, which who's from Punjab, and my father, who's from Amritsar, and then further, if I look, I feel completely belong to my mother's side of the family, because I've seen my nana, nani, dada, dadi. But when I look at my father's side of the family, because he had a stepmother and his real mother expired when he was just 2 years of age, um, it did not work out. It did not work out that, um, it didn't go well, that they needed to, it didn't, his relationship with his family was not so brilliant, and he had two sets of families to take care of his real mother and the mother who had who basically, he had more than one mother, is what I would say. And so my relationship with them will change, because his relationship with them is different. And then I belong to Mumbai, because that's where I lived, where my parents came and settled down. And then I belong to India. So I want you to now think, where do you belong, and how is it that this belonging of yours is going to be impacting your survival, your individual survival? And how is it going to survive? How is it going to impact like your children and grandchildren? And just for you to know that survival means super, sir means as super, and viva means long live. So it's in Mexican language. We say a long live a person is called the survival. And we as human beings need to always feel that we belong and we survive and we will do whatever it is required. We will do whatever it is required to survive. So there are four branches of survival. One is belonging, the other is a structure that we need. And then we also need to do activity. We belong because we do certain kind of work. We belong because we create certain structures in life, like the roles that we play. And we also belong because we then create or pave the way of creativity in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this, and keep looking forward. I'm going to be doing another video after this, so do connect with that on the Health Library. Thank you so much.
Help Talks are daily health-related talks held at Health Education Library for People, Mumbai, India. For more information visit www.healthlibrary.com. Subscribe to Help Talks channel. Be better informed about your health.